Alright, it's time to talk about patch 3.1, okay? Because I've been hearing mixed things. I've been hearing some people say, it's horrifically bad. It's like meeting up with your family over the holidays. Terrible. I'd rather die, right? Some people thought it was actually kind of good, like the dialogue was pretty decent. Mighty is an absolute Chad. We had some Tribbie backstory, despite it being kind of long. We had some people think that it was just, honestly, mediocre. Just some good stuff, some bad stuff. It was right there, right in the middle. The definition of mid. So let's go ahead and talk about this situation. But first, if you like this kind of stuff, consider leaving a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help out. We just hit 9K and we're making that push towards 10K, which will be the first milestone for the channel. And also, it goes without saying, but spoilers, okay? We're talking about the main story here. But first, I gotta say that patch 3.2 is actually the patch that the devs promised they would be giving us improvements for, not 3.1. 3.1, the current patch we're in, was already well into its beta by the time the promises were made. So if you guys want to whip out your pitchforks and start a riot, do it in 3.2 in all fairness. Honestly, you can do whatever you want. I was just pointing that stuff out. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. So, patch 3.1 actually starts off strong, which might have been a surprise to a lot of people considering how 3.0 went. And it's all because of Mighty. Dude, this Chad is single-handedly carrying Amphorius on his back, dude. You see that? What is that? Kefali? Is that Kefali? The dude with the... He's carrying the big old globe on his back. It's that one god in the background. He's always there. That might as well be Mighty because that's how it feels watching the story develop. Mighty is so cool, and he carries this story so well. We even get to play as Mighty in a short little demo. There's not a whole lot of enemies, so take advantage of the time you have to test the dude out and look at his kit if you haven't already. I made a video going over all of it. It's in the description if you guys wanted to check that out. Personally, I don't like that Mighty has this Berserker mode where once you use his ultimate, you can't control him anymore. That kind of stinks to me. No, I get it. It's like, it's supposed to be lore-based, like he can't control his rage or some nonsense like that. But personally, I wish that like only it was slightly less of a Berserker state and you had more control over the guy. Maybe you can't control some of his kit. I can understand that, but like it just doesn't feel as fun personally to me that I can't control him more. It just is. It's a turn-based strategy game and eliminates the strategy from the game entirely if you can't even control the dude. But that aside, I think he's going to be a strong character, just maybe not the strongest, which is fine. It's like a blessing in disguise, right? Because power creep has been so abysmal in Honkai Star Rail for a long time. The fact that he's not maybe going to be the strongest is totally fine. He's also going to pair very well with Castrus, but more importantly, for the sake of the video, when he is on screen, he carries the story so fucking hard. Like, he shows up on screen and people all of a sudden come out of their stupor and they start paying attention again. They're not spamming spacebar the entire time he's on screen because the voice actors do an absolutely amazing job. When he speaks, the writing that was done for him is actually well done, but that is short-lived because not long after we exit Mighty's perspective, well, the story just kind of falls off, dude. It just falls flat onto its face and it starts to remind us of the storytelling they were doing in 3.0, and that just is not a good feeling, man. Oh my god, I was getting PTSD flashbacks the moment I saw a puzzle. Now, to be fair, the puzzles were nowhere near as bad as 3.0. I swear to God, I had to like quit playing the story like several different times in 3.0. It took me like over a week just to finish the 3.0 story, and I was trying to for 3.0. With 3.1, I was just a bit busy. I only really got to actually play the patch maybe like 2 or 3 times, and I finished it in those 2 or 3 times that I tried. But it was a little bit annoying in this like early section before we get to roughly the midway point of the patch. It is during this kind of more boring part, though, that we end up meeting with Anaxa, who is yet another snooty pants male. Why are all of the males in this game a little snooty pants? Okay, Dr. Ratio, despite how much we might like him ratioing everybody in the comments, he's a snooty pants. We got Adventuring, who's a bit of a snooty pants, okay? Boot Hill was kind of like a saving grace because bro just drank whiskey and talked shit the whole time, and I liked that, you know? So I'm just kind of done with all of the snooty pants like male characters. We don't get them that often in the game. They're not released as often. So a character like Mighty just shines like a beacon of light in the dark compared to some of these other characters. Now, I know y'all probably hate my guts for saying that about Anaxa. We haven't seen that much of him yet, so maybe I'll come around to the guy, but we need to learn more about him before I have a full take. It's just, initially, I'm not enjoying the dude so far. He's got this connection with Circe's, aka Calypso. He's literally storing her core flame, or what is it? Is it a non-binary because it's a god? I don't know. It doesn't matter. He's got the core flame inside of him. It's this cool little thing. Like, I think that there's going to be some interesting, cool lore there as things progress forward. So I can't wait to see what they do with the guy. But his introduction was just kind of mid. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It was just sort of there. Oh, yeah. And then we also meet Hyacine in 3.1 in this, like, first half. And by the end of the patch, we don't really learn a whole lot more about her. Just a few sentences of backstory and about the core flame that she's after, etc., etc. But half of what we learn is essentially that she's a healer. So although that hasn't necessarily been confirmed or anything like that, it is being blatantly shoved into our face that this girl is going to be a healer. So if you guys are, need another healer on your roster, get prepared with and save your pulls, because, sustainability characters tend to be pretty impactful in this game because we don't get them all too often, so she'll probably be meta relevant. Thank God, because personally, I'm not into the shy, timid girl thing. That's just not my thing, and that's exactly what she is. Her personality to me so far is about as exciting as a piece of driftwood, okay? So that's just me. If you guys are into that type of thing, go for it, pal. You guys got first dibs. I'll be waiting for somebody in the future that's got a bit more pizzazz. But in all fairness, Anaxa and Hyacine weren't necessarily meant to be the stars of the show this patch. They're more meant to be the focus of a future patch. So I'm probably just being a bit hard on them, but I honestly don't care. All right, now that I farmed some hate in the comments about Anaxa, let's talk about the Flame Reaver. Because this is like the coolest dude they've ever shown in the entire game. I dare you to try to make a cooler comparison of a character than maybe Svarog. Okay, Svarog's pretty cool. But besides Svarog, this has gotta be the coolest ever, NPC in the game. Why don't you guys release playable characters like this, Hoyoverse? I would E6 this dude in an instant. All right, maybe that's an exaggeration, but I would definitely make this guy super strong. I would farm out some crazy relics for this dude because he deserves it, because look at that cape, look at that great sword. He's got the cool, bone mask. This dude is aura farming probably almost as hard, if not harder, than Castris at this point, and he doesn't even have a dragon. Anyways, yeah, he's pretty cool, I guess. But those fights that we have with him, am I crazy? Am I crazy? Why do I feel like he's gonna come back? Why do I feel like we're not done with him yet somehow? I might be losing my mind. Maybe I just like the guy so hard I'm creating my own headcanon like the brain-rotted people on Twitter. But straight up, I feel like maybe we're not done with the guy. Maybe we're not done. Maybe I'm just capping. Maybe I'm losing it. Maybe it's just Maybelline. But because, Mighty is the guy who put in the final blow. Bro's kind of goated right now. So maybe we're done with the Flame Reaver. But I don't know, man. He's just so cool. And he's such a slimy snake in the grass. I feel like we might see him again someday, or at least learn about where he came from and somehow connect him to some story in the future. But that's just me. Now, it's at about the halfway point that the story starts to pick up, right? They start to deliver better on their storytelling and just in general with how they're presenting things in 3.1. This is around the time that Mighty goes through his trial. We don't actually see the trial take place. He just comes out of it. He shows up on the battlefield out of nowhere, saving the day, and he comes through blasting. He just comes through like a straight-up gangsta, firing off rounds, dude. This dude comes out hot. Okay, Finan gets involved a little bit. Everybody's doing their thing. It's a cool little fight scene against the Flame Reaver for the second time. Mighty puts in that finishing blow. Bro is so goated. Mighty's so cool. Anyways, beyond Mighty. But that's when things start to get better in the patch. I think by this point, though, some players may have already started spamming spacebar and stopped paying attention to the story, which I think is an unfortunate thing for the patch. Because I've come to find that a lot of people these days with Honkai Star Rail, the new patch drops and they grind the entire patch in like one single sitting right after it comes out, getting no sleep, spamming spacebar through the whole entire story, and then wonder why they didn't enjoy themselves. Bro, it's because you practically turned beating the patch into like a job. That's not enjoyable, right? I've come to find personally that I enjoy these patches more recently if I span them out more. Like if I take, rather than one night of just blasting it all in one go, if I do it in like maybe 2 or 3 days of off and on gameplay, I digest the information a lot better, and it's a lot more enjoyable to me that way. Now, this is the part where I play both sides of the fence, because I'm gonna switch it up on you. While I do feel like it is most enjoyable to play a patch over several days' time, there are patches in Honkai Star Rail that have occurred where I played the whole entire thing in one go, and I never really got bored of it. And I'd say that Penacony's patch 2.0 was a good example of that, right? Penacony was a new world. It was better written, at least in the early goings of it. There was mystery, right? They were leaving all these different clues and like creating all these little mysteries. I put out like 3 or 4 theory videos for the story of Penacony just off of what I was experiencing in 2.0. And again, I finished the entire patch in one sitting, if I recall correctly, and it was a great time. It was a great time, but I can't say the same for patch 3.0 or 3.1, and I think that does say something about the current story presentation of Honkai Star Rail. But getting back to patch 3.1, the second half unfortunately suffered from overbloating as well. The best example I can make of this is the Tribbie backstory, and it's unfortunate because I personally think the Tribbie backstory ended really, really well. I think that it had some of the best writing so far in the entire patch as far as just like personal dialogue between characters, and I have a feeling that most people by that point were probably just spamming spacebar and trying to skip as much of it as they possibly could because they were probably bored from previous moments in the patch. But it's unfortunate because I do think that it ended really, really well. Seeing Trian, like, you know, pass on and that see you tomorrow, and then Casterus trying to tell Tribbie that see you tomorrow is just a white lie, and then Tribbie being like, shut up, bitch, you don't know anything. See you tomorrow is one of the best prophecies you could ever have. And then she has that whole entire dialogue sequence that I'm butchering it right now. Tribbie was spitting, bro. Tribbie was straight up spitting and made Casterus look like a little weenie. She looked like a little weenie over there. And this little tiny lolly Tribbie was just absolutely putting her on blast. It was so cool. I thought some of the dialogue was really, really well done. And unfortunately, it got overshadowed by the over-bloating and completely unnecessary dialogue and backstory that is probably never even going to amount to anything. It kind of reminded me of what happens sometimes in Final Fantasy games. If you guys have ever played certain Final Fantasy games, every once in a while, especially in Final Fantasy XIV, where sometimes you're just sitting there going through dialogue after dialogue after dialogue, and it's just not that good. Then you get to the end of the story, and the end of the story finishes off really, really well, and it almost makes up for everything that had happened before. That's how it felt with the Tribbie backstory and some of the stuff that was going on in 3.1. The problem is, it doesn't matter how well it ends, it doesn't make up for the poor beginning or the poor middle section that led up to that point. It's just not very enjoyable. And I mean, that's kind of like a diss to Final Fantasy, which it wasn't meant to be a diss to Final Fantasy. I think Final Fantasy is fine for what it is. It has some lull moments, it has some great moments, but overall Final Fantasy is telling its story a bit better than Honkai Star Rail is right now. Let's just be real about it. Now, I need to point out something that I think they did well in the second half of 3.1, and that is they shut the heck up and they told us the story. It's the main story. It's not about the puzzles. It's not even about the combat, because that stuff's easy. That stuff just gets in the way of seeing the actual story. And 3.1's second half actually put their nose to the grindstone and gave us more of an interactive, cinematic experience. It felt like we were watching a movie. Yeah, some of the movie was overbloated with unnecessary dialogue and backstory that will probably never amount to anything, but it was an improvement upon, let's say, 3.0, for example. It was a pretty good, strat. They just didn't necessarily execute the strat that well because they just overbloated things. But I think the second half of Amphoreus' 3.1 actually gave me some good vibes. What I mean to say is that I was worried about Amphoreus after 3.0. I was like, is this going to be 8 main story patches of just straight up garbage? Or are they eventually going to build into something interesting? And the way that they handled the second half, at least, of 3.1 was a lot better than I think everything of 3.0. And it was better than the first half of 3.1. And I think going into 3.2, knowing that they plan to not overbloat the story with unnecessary dialogue, some of the dialogue is going to be given to us through NPC interaction. If you want that backstory, go talk to the NPC. That way the story doesn't get bogged down with unnecessary dialogue that nobody even really cares about. They said they're going to be using less black screens with white text. Hey, guys, guess what? They used less black screens with white text in 3.1, and they hadn't even planned for that, which just goes to show how bad 3.0 actually was from the get-go. At the end of the day, 3.1 gave me some hope, okay? Because 3.0, pretty much all of it was either mid or just kind of bad. 3.1 at least had some highs. It had some lows, but it also had some highs. And I think that gives us hope. I think that gives us promise, especially knowing that in 3.2, they plan to improve things and are trying to listen to the players. Anyways, I know some of what I said might be considered hot takes to different people. It's a matter of opinion, and that's what I want to hear from you guys. Let me know what your opinion is on 3.1, what stuff you liked, what stuff you didn't like, what stuff I didn't mention in the video because I didn't want to make this like 2 hours long. If you guys like this kind of stuff, consider leaving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.